Hey everyone, we're coming to you from Pear Street Brewery. We have Chris Herr with us, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Pear Street Brewery, their beers, some stuff they have going on, and Alex actually recently brewed a beer here. What's it called? Strawberries and Cream?
Strawberries and Cream IPA, or what I call Right in the Kisser.
Right in the Kisser, perfect. And Dan also made some fantastic art for that as well. If you haven't seen it yet on our social media, we'll be posting it again. So I got a collaboration going on here as well. So to start off, Chris, if you just want to talk about Pear Street a little bit, what you do here.
Yeah, sure. Started here as an assistant about 8 years ago, working under my former boss, basically doing the basic stuff, scrubbing floors, cleaning beer lines, cleaning tanks, raking out mash, doing that kind of stuff. Did that for about a year and a half, and then I actually went to another job briefly for a while before I came back when we opened the Pan American Grill Brewery, which was our second brewery that we opened in the Hotel Lafayette. And then shortly thereafter, I was promoted to head brewer of all three of our locations when my former boss retired. So I've been the head guy here for about, already 4 years now almost. So we've been trying to up the quality of the beers that we've been brewing and stay a little more relevant. You know, when I started 8 years ago, there were 2 breweries in town, and we're up to like 28 or 30 now or something.
Yeah, that's really
so patience was rewarded.
Yeah. So, but Pearl Street was kind of known for making very approachable, sort of like mild amber ales and light beers, and something with all these new breweries coming to town. One thing we really had to focus on was diversifying our flavor profile. So something we've really been focusing on is trying to make beers that are approachable for everyone, but at far different ends of the spectrum. So, we have dark beers and hoppy beers and light beers and amber beers and everything in between. We've been working on that with all of our different locations, and now with Riverworks getting open as well shortly, I will actually have 32 different beers on draft at any given time that I'm brewing. So,
that's awesome.
So we're basically brewing whatever we want at this point. It's just a matter of where we put it. So it's pretty cool. It's been an exciting and a learning experience and a great job for me. So
with having to keep up and all the different things coming up with beer, when you were approached with the notion that you have a strawberries and cream beer coming your way that now you have to brew, what were your first thoughts?
I remember his first sentence to me.
Oh boy, what was it? I don't even.
How many fucking strawberries?
I think that probably was my first thought. One of the great challenges from being a home brewer, brewing 5 gallons at a time or 10 gallons at a time at home, and brewing on a commercial scale where we brew about 500 gallons at a time, is that you have to multiply most of your numbers by 100. So using 4 pounds of strawberries in a 5-gallon batch is like not a big deal until you need to use 400 pounds of strawberries. And, obviously that becomes a challenge. I think it was made pretty clear, and Alex and I worked together about how we were going to reformulate the recipe to work on the commercial scale, and I think we're both quite satisfied with the product. And we managed to not break the bank brewing it, which is even better. So I have a job next week again, which is great. But yeah.
Way to go, Alex. You didn't ruin them.
Or Chris's job.
Oh, yeah. So that was probably the biggest concern, was how we were going to take something that can be labored over in your kitchen or your backyard and make it on a commercial scale. And we always say, like, we brew a blueberry beer here, and half the people who try it say there's no blueberry in it, and half the people who try it say there's too much blueberry in it. So I figure we're just right. No one's happy, so it's perfect. But yeah, it's kind of that balancing act where when I tried Alex's beer, which was a Strawberries and Cream IPA, I didn't get a whole lot of cream out of it, and I didn't get a ton of strawberry except from the hops we were using. So I knew those were 2 things that we were going to have to work on, and selling it as a Strawberries and Cream IPA to the masses. We were going to have everyone saying, "Oh, there's too much strawberry. There's not enough strawberry." So that, I think, was our biggest challenge that we were working through, and we knew we would have to creep up on that flavor because we wanted it. The goal for the beer was to be an IPA first and a Strawberries and Cream second. So that was definitely a conversation we had that we tried to figure out how we were going to do all of that, and on a commercial scale without ever having brewed up like a pilot batch of it before too. So that was probably the biggest challenge of the beer.
Yeah, a little nerve-wracking waiting for it during fermentation.
Yeah.
Like, oh, please be good. Please be good.
Yeah, and I think it was worth the wait.
Hell yeah.
So you didn't brew a pilot batch with the new recipe?
No.
Just tweak the recipe to make it work in a large scale, and then went after it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Nice.
You know, it's funny because when I was a home brewer, I probably brewed about 50 times at home, and before I became a professional. And I think I just broke my 1,000 mark on the 15-barrel system that I've brewed 1,000 times on a 15-barrel. So I'm actually more comfortable on a larger scale at this point in my career than I am on a 5-gallon scale. So I can look at numbers, and I've been doing this long enough to kind of know how to dial in things to make them work. So it was. I think we were both pretty confident going in that we would. Yeah, well, the biggest concern to me was getting the cream in there. Personally, it was like, how are we going to mix vanilla and the bitterness traditionally associated with an IPA to get that cream aspect of it? But it worked out. I mean, obviously, well, I think so. I don't know. Whatever you guys. But there was no vanilla in the original recipe, right? So
No, there was no vanilla in it.
So that was kind of a wild card. That was sort of my contribution to it, and
I think it worked out because I know the next time I brew it, there will be vanilla in it.
Perfect.
I mean, this was your beer, Alex, and you had said to us earlier, like, unfortunately, when it debuted, I wasn't able to be here, but you had said it's better than what I had hoped for.
Yeah. It's actually better than the first 2 batches that I did at home.
Perfect.
I like it more than the first 2 batches I did.
Awesome.
And
Good.
the keg that I got from here is actually almost done.
And I'm hoping there's still a bottle waiting for me. That was promised, at least.
Yeah, I'll make sure there is.
All right, I'm going to be eating a growler when I leave.
It's probably a good
Promises
idea.
were broken.
It's been going quick here too. So.
We may
That's
almost
also
have
good.
2 hosts when the drama dies down.
Well, we were talking actually to Jeff, one of the bartenders here, and he had said, you know, it was one of those beers that stayed true to form. It was an IPA that had a strawberry and cream finish last, and it wasn't overly sweet. You still got it, but it still stuck within its style. Unlike what we had said, like, you know, you have so many beers that have so much flavor to them, they kind of start leaving the mark. So,
Will mask the other flavor.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well done, gentlemen.
Cheers.
The vanilla, the cream part,
Yeah.
I'm really liking that, especially since, like you were talking about, it doesn't overpower the hop profile.
No.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different parts of my tongue being activated with this.
Yeah.
And yet there's still a slight bitterness from an IPA that you just get, and it sticks around, and I'm like, that's the IPA I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So this has been on tap for a week now, right? Or
2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay.
Yep.
And yeah, the demand has been good. People have been favorable to it.
Yeah, it's it hasn't been the busiest 2 weeks for us. We're kind of in that getting out of the spring or getting into the spring slump. So
The weather's starting to turn for you. Your patios are opening up.
well, yeah,
People are
all
starting to
that's-
come out into the sunlight.
that's great, But I think a lot of people at this point are going home after work and drinking beer while mowing their lawns and redoing their gardening. So we've been busy still, but not as busy as we will be in, like, say, 2-3 weeks is when we're really going to be hit. When
summer hits and you can't find a parking spot down at the harbor.
Right. Yeah. And, the patios will be in full swing and people will be out drinking beer and just throwing it back. And that's when we really hit our stride is once the sun's out. But I think everyone's in Buffalo sort of, we're all still pretty glow in the dark. I mean, not you, but, but, I'm glow in the dark.
It's a joke. They don't know. They don't know.
The illusion is ruined.
Way to go, Chris.
The beauty of radio. Wait, hold on. So I think a lot of people are like, we've been very busy still, but not as busy as we will be in a couple weeks. So, but that being said, this beer has been actually doing as well, if not better, than our other IPAs and our other pale ales that we have on draft. We even have some regulars that switched from Saber's Edge over to this while it was on draft upstairs. So,
Wow.
So can I ask a question? I don't mean to put you on the spot. we brew it again for when it hits the warmer weather?
That is a good question. It did a lot better. Like, we brewed a half batch of it, which is our version of piloting at Pearl. It did pretty well because of some other slips in beers that we have, like the Grapefruit Session that I'm drinking right now, which we were talking about a little before. We'll see how it comes out. I definitely would brew it again. I don't know if we'll do it this season, but I would definitely brew it again at some point. So I could see this as a good later summer beer too. On the tail end of summer when it's starting to cool down again. I think this would be a good fall beer. We normally do our red IPA then too, so yeah, we'll see. I'm not opposed to the idea. Maybe we'll do a full batch this time because
at that point you could probably get some fresh strawberries and do a little cask of it too.
Oh yeah, right. We had talked about that, right?
We're gonna start garnishing this like Blue Moon, dropping 3 blueberries in there. Just drop a whole strawberry in there, splashes over.
I got my PR photo with a strawberry on the glass and 2 vanilla beans, and it came out pretty nice.
It was a good shot.
The Bloody Mary of beer.
Yeah, right.
We can put a little hop cone punching it into the face.
Just a little toy, what is it? The Mr. Potato Head gloves on it.
Are there hop toys yet?
There's got
little hop characters. There must be. You have to look that up later.
If not, I'm making one.
I'd buy it. That'd be adorable. So for summer coming up, any besides the strawberries and cream, any beers that you're looking forward to brewing that's either summer specific or just that are coming up that you're excited about?
Yeah, one of my there's 2 that I'm really excited about. I like all of our beers, but there's 2 in particular that I've been really excited about. One is we tried it for the first time last year. It's actually a gin spiced saison. So we take a saison and then we add lemon peels and cardamom, coriander, and juniper berries to it. And it just comes out tasting like a gin and tonic in a glass, basically. So we'll garnish it with a lime, and in the summer, it's just like drinking a gin and tonic beer. It's really cool. It was actually so popular last year that people asked us to brew it again this year. I'm already getting people saying, "You gonna have that gin saison again?" It's unique too. And last year it was one of those beers where most of our beers are very popular when we get them, and then they sort of become less popular as they sit around a little bit longer as new things come out. That beer did the exact opposite, where people weren't sure if they were going to try it or not, and they tried it and they liked it, and then all of a sudden the sales kept getting bigger and bigger on it until it was gone when we were the most popular, which was a bummer. So I'm excited to. Not a gin guy, I can tell.
Oh no!
Oh, he likes gin.
Oh,
I haven't had that beer, but I brew beer that now I want to win next year. I want to win Beers and Cheers. I want that beer brewed here.
So that beer is very good, and I'm looking forward to brewing that one again this summer. And then the other one is actually one of the first batches of beer I ever brewed, and I'll give you guys the background on it. It's my green tea beer. So my wife, who was my girlfriend in college, right when I started homebrewing, she used to drink Bud Light and chew mint bubblegum, and I would be like,
"That's interesting."
Yeah, and I jokingly said to her one day, "I'm going to make you a mint flavored beer," because it was like, well, I'll just here. So I happened to be looking in my cupboard at the time, and I noticed I had a Tazo Zen, which is green tea with lemongrass and mint, and I thought, that would probably be a pretty good combination to throw into a beer. Beating it to them. Don't worry, I made a kick-ass sponge candy stout before Resurgence was even a twinkle on the show. Anyway, so I brewed this basically a blonde ale with this Tazo Zen green tea in it, and we brewed it finally on the commercial scale here about 3 years ago and sold out of it in like 4 weeks. It was one of those beers when people tried it, it was just like, yeah, give me another. Yeah, give me another. Just slamming it.
What was the ABV on that?
It's like 5%. I intentionally keep it low so that you can drink a lot of it, because you can't just drink one of them. I swear, it
really is.
The glass just drains. So I brewed it a couple years ago and it was a hit, and then we actually won at Wines in the Wild with it. We won Best Beer at Wines in the Wild one year with it. So now it's the infamous green tea beer, the award-winning green tea
beer. To have this beer.
Yeah, so
it's really good.
It's so.
I have a feeling I'm going to taste it and I'm just going to look at him like, damn him.
So those are probably my two summer beers that I'm really excited about. And then we have this Grapefruit Session IPA on right now that I call our Spring Sippa. So everyone here calls our Saber's Edge the Dippa, right, which is our double IPA. But then I did our red IPA, which we actually started calling Jack the Rippa, because it was our IPA. And now we have our black IPA on for the winter, so that's the Blippa. And then for the summer we have the Sippa. So we got the Sippa, the Blippa, the Rippa, the Dippa. And we do that. It's a real heavy Amarillo bomb, so it's like a really juicy, fruity hop profile, but in that 4.5% package, and it just makes her an awesome summer beer. You know, again, with the green tea beer, and the gin beer, and the session IPA, it's just an awesome time to hang out on the patio and drink beer here.
So with so obviously it sounds like, so with the obvious success that you've had, I have to ask now, has there ever been a beer that you've done and then you're like, this was just no?
Wow, has there ever been a beer? Well, I'll be honest with you. Most of the time when that happens, I might not care for the beer that we brew. If there's a flaw in it, if it's sour, if it's funky, if there's something wrong with it, we've dumped beer. It sucks, but it happens. I had an issue where we were having stressed yeast problems from one of our yeast suppliers, and we brewed 3 batches of beer that tasted like pool water. And I was not about to give that to our customers and call it okay, because they're paying to have our pints, and we have a reputation here.
I appreciate that.
So we dumped 2,000 gallons of beer one week down the drain because it just wasn't up to snuff. And that sucks, but it happens, and so if it's really, really bad, we'll dump it. But
not even on a commercial standpoint, but just like homebrewing standpoint. Like, is there ever been a flavor profile that you're like, I don't know if I can bring this to a table? Like,
let me tell you about this great idea I had about French toast beer.
Okay. So in
Diagonal
theory,
tastes
that
like
sounds
butter,
great.
so that would be good on French toast.
butter. This goes back to the whole egg beer.
Yeah.
Oh, God, don't talk about the egg beer.
Egg beer will succeed.
So, no, I don't know. I mean, the funny thing here is that I might not care for it, but we'll put it on draft and see how it does. If there's not something obviously wrong with it, and even sometimes if there is, not often anymore. But it's amazing how much you learn as a commercial brewer to just sell whatever it is you have. So like, beer has been brewed for 10,000 years, right? Egyptians were brewing it, and that Egyptians weren't brewing Strawberries and Cream IPA. They were brewing funky, thick, dark, sour beers that were like liquid bread and tangy because they were fermented with wild yeast and wild bacteria and in clay pots and
someone sneezed in it, probably.
Yeah. Oh, they didn't know. Malty was not a word in their vocabulary. So there is this sort of primal, I think, at least from my way of looking at it, is there's this sort of primal draw to beer, period, and then there's this sort of primal draw to sour beer too, because it's what your great ancestors were drinking back then when they talk about beer being thousands of years old. So
it's the original beer.
Right. So we try different things, and if I remember this one time we brought a red ale to a festival, and it was sour, like it was just completely sour, and we were calling it an Irish Red. And I had about 4 guys in a row come up and take a sip of it and go, ugh, and dump it in a bucket. And then I grabbed my sign and a Sharpie and I wrote Flemish Red Ale and turned it and put it back on. And I swear every geek in the place came up like, oh my God, this is the best sour I've had ever. So it's like, you can brew the beer that isn't exactly what it's supposed to be. But if you're telling your customer what to expect, if you're trying an Irish Red, that was not an Irish Red. Tried as a Flemish Red, oh yeah, okay, this is a sour Flemish, like it makes sense. So even when the beers don't do terribly well commercially, we'll try putting them on and just make sure that they taste how we say, like whatever the product is, even if they didn't go exactly as expected. And as long as you tell your customer what you're giving them, 90% of the time they'll either say they'll try it and they'll either like it, or they'll say they don't like it and they'll just order something else. That's one of the beauties of having 32 different draft lines is we have 14 different beers on draft at any time at Pearl Street. So if you can't find something you like, I often say turn the finger around. You might not be able to. Might not be my fault.
Might not really be in the beer at that point.
Right. So
during the competition, the name of it is Right in the Kisser, and instead of calling it Right in the Kisser, I called it Strawberries and Cream IPA because I wanted to tell people what to expect.
Absolutely.
And then people were like, "Oh my god, I get the strawberries and cream." Yeah. I'm like, oh, "Okay, cool."
Like, I know the strawberries, not sure about the cream, but you know what? I put that in your mind.
Yeah. So that's just it, and you'll notice for a lot of our beers, like we have house beers that have names, but almost every one of my seasonals I don't give a name to. They're like, we have a Czech Pilsner on right now, which is called Pearl Street Czech Pilsner. We have a black IPA on, which we do call the Black Pearl, because how can you pass up that name with a black IPA?
Yeah.
But very clearly next to all of our beers, especially in the seasonals, I make sure to have the style next to it, because if it were up to me, you would have Pearl Street Light, Pearl Street Amber, Pearl Street Stout, Pearl Street IPA, Pearl Street Pale Ale, because it just gets so crowded in the marketplace nowadays, and you have an education of people that understand what these styles of beer are. They don't want to be filtering through a name and a label, and we don't distribute either. So if you're coming to our brew pub, I want you to know exactly what you're getting when you order it off the menu. And the clearer we can make that message to our customers, the more likely they are to understand what they're ordering and be satisfied when they get it.
Yeah. I mean, as one of your customers, I definitely appreciate that, because I've been places where it's just the name, or just, even if the style, maybe not the ABV is up there, and I have to spend a minute on my phone looking it up, because I don't want to get a 10% beer if I'm about to leave and want a session.
Right.
So it's important to know that information.
Yeah. We intentionally avoid putting ABV on our board, just because we do get a lot of pre-game traffic, so people are going to a Sabres game, and we don't want them just ordering our 8% IPA because they see it's the strongest beer on the board and they want to chug 3 of them before they walk out the door. It's not a practice I necessarily agree with. I think people should know how much trouble they're getting themselves into, and I think you see less and less of people just going in and ordering a 9% beer because it's 9%. Especially because it might have some flavors that are associated with it that they might not be so into.
I think you only get the people. I think now you only get people searching for those, going for those high alcohol ones first at beer festivals.
Yes, well, yeah, that's the VIP ticket, right? Doesn't it mean extra ABV ticket? Man, last time I was in a VIP, it was like 9 different barrel-aged imperial stouts. Like, oh sure, why not?
I got my first VIP festival coming up this year. So actually,
which one?
BCTC will be my first VIP festival. So I can only assume, considering what I went through last year.
Oh, my gang doesn't pull their punches either, man.
It's one hell of a festival.
You get a tent and somewhere to pass out.
Exactly. I passed out early, but I woke up at 5 a.m. just looking around. I'm like, I'm actually okay. How did I do that?
Isn't Hennepin like 7% or something? Like you never know it drinking.
It wasn't even Hennepin. It was like Firestone, Sticky Monkey. There was I can't even describe the amount.
Hardywood next to Firestone too. They had some real high ones.
When they were closing up, Stone was there with their Stone Farking Wood Stout.
Okay.
We got a taste of it going around, of course, but then when they were closing up, we went up and we just said, "Hey, can you fill up this? Was it an 8-ounce goblet?" And they said, "Yeah, sure. It'll be lighter for us to carry back to the truck." So
didn't they have multiples of them? Like it took them so long to actually pack everything up. Like, I'm done. One more?
I have literally been, well, I shouldn't say this, but I've been pouring beers at festivals going, no, you can't have one, I'm closing. Here. Just no, I'll get in trouble if they see you getting these, so get out of here and take these.
It's weird because, I mean, the secret of the festival is the fact that as much as it doesn't want to be said, it's you brought the beer, you don't really want to take it home. You don't want to lug it
Absolutely
back.
Not.
But you also have to be reasonable to the people and the consumer that you're serving.
Sure.
And I remember at BCTC, I went up to the guy who was from Firestone, and their Sticky Monkey, and I love this beer. And I love their Proprietor series. And I realized I'm the only one. There's one person behind me. So he gives me in an 8-ounce glass, he gives me my little shot. And I'm just looking at him like, I kind of walked away a little disappointed. So I just went behind the person who was behind me, and I just handed him my glass again. And it's like, you already got some. And I'm like, I know. Give me more. Yeah. And I'm like,
I waited in line.
He's like, I said, listen. I said, just fill it to the top. I said, otherwise I'm just going to keep circling. I said, we could get this done and over with if you just fill it, and I go on my merry way, because this is all I want right now.
Yeah, the outer negotiation.
Yeah. And he's just looking at me, he's like, okay. And he's like, I'm defeated here. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck with that dick who's just standing in front of him like, more please, more please.
Well, and that's always kind of, from the other side of it, having been a vendor at many, many beer events, it's always kind of flattering when someone comes up and wants your beer over and over again. You know, I was at an event earlier this week where we brought our Pilsner and our Black IPA to a wine event, essentially. And the beer guys find you real quick. They're like, oh, I hate wine. Give me some of your beer. And they're like, and I think this one girl came back 4 times to get refills on her glasses. It's like,
all right.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. You know, you can have it. And again, like you said, we bring this beer. I can't serve a half-empty keg at the pub for legal reasons after we've served it. So basically, if I don't give it away, that beer gets dumped. So it's like,
it's a waste.
I would rather give it away, break the rules to give a couple people a little happiness to say, like, but now maybe you come to that event, you try my beer, you really like it, you come back at the end and try to get as much as you can. I give it to you. You remember that as a positive experience with my brand, and now you come back to Pearl Street the next time when you're coming for a beer because you had such an awesome experience at a festival. So it's a fine line to balance between following the rules and making, you know, if someone's obviously hammered, give me another one, you know, that's one thing. But if they're coming back like for their 5th time to get another sample, like, here, take a full one. You know? Clearly you're just coming to me, so.
Definitely find your favorites when you're walking around festival and you're like, all right, this guy was, and you find that one person who's like, this guy was really cool to me. Like I'm going to go see him instead of waiting in this line of 17 people for a beer that I possibly may like.
Right.
And I've only got 15 minutes left in this festival. See ya.
Yeah. Seriously.
Flying Monkeys has always been pretty cool. They're a Canadian brewery. I don't know if you've had them before.
No, I haven't.
You guys are at the ballpark.
Good stuff,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually they're a Canadian brewery that, at least the times I've been there, they're always in the front, as soon as you walk in.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
The people they have manning the booth and the brewers they have there, they're really nice too. They'll talk to you. And,
sure. I like doing them myself.
I skipped the line in the very, very cool people.
I like doing those events myself too, you know, because I'm representing my brand as much as anything, so... I think as we see more and more breweries involved in the world, and as the world grows, you're going to get to know brewers as much as you're going to get to know breweries, right? So, like, when you hear about the head brewer from The Alchemist opening his own place at a little shop around the corner, all of a sudden that place is the one who's getting all the business because they're following the brewer as much as they're following the brand. So. So I think it's important to make sure that you represent yourself well and you represent your brand well. So,
do you get a chance to go to festivals just on the other side, so not the vendor side, but the customer side, or mostly do you just go as the vendor now?
I mostly go as the vendor, but some festivals are a little more lenient than others, where you can get volunteers to be pouring, or I'll bring other staff and we'll kind of rotate through, like. You know, one of you will be out walking, and we always have this deal where if you walk away, you got to bring 2 glasses so that you both get a sample. You know, we get to try a lot of different beers. I don't think I've paid to go to a festival in a long time, but perks of the gig, I guess. So, yeah.
Any Buffalo festivals coming up that you're excited about, or Pearl Street's going to be a vendor at?
Well, we just did Farm to Pint, which was very cool. Farm to Pint, if you don't know, is based around the idea that we now have local hop growers, local barley growers, and local barley malters, actually, as well. And then on top of that, on the other side, we have the brewers, obviously, who are making beer with these local ingredients. And then on the other side of that, we're actually giving our spent grains and things to pig farmers and chicken farmers and cattle farmers, who are then raising their produce on these different types of grain and waste products from the breweries, basically. So we have this whole relationship where you can literally come in and get a beer and a burger, and they were both the burger was raised on spent grain from the brewery, the beer you're drinking, which is really cool. So Farm to Pint is this whole idea that we have these farmers who are working with brewers, and then these brewers who are giving back to the farmers on a different end, and it creates this little sort of a microeconomy that's very cool. So Farm to Pint was just this last Sunday, and we had something like 14 local breweries that participated in it, and all of us brewed a beer.
It's at Hamburg, right?
It's at Hamburg Brewing, right?
You knew about this?
So we brewed a rye pale ale, actually, with New York State rye, New York State barley, and New York State hops, all grown right in Western New York in addition to all of that. So it keeps that idea of the economy keeping it local. And then this coming Saturday or Sunday is Full Circle Fest at 42 North, which is kind of the same idea. This idea that we raise barley, we make beer out of it, we feed our pigs with the barley. I'll be there, yeah, with
will we.
with our New York State Rye Pale Ale,
Nice.
Which came out very nice. So
You can save me some.
we will. Chinook hops, New York State rye, and New York State barley, like I said. So, and they're doing a big pig roast and everything, right? So, like a pig
that was raised off of our
raised on barley, spent grain.
Yeah.
So this very cool thing that we're all sort of supporting each other, and it's the most beneficial business to be in that I've ever been in. We're not competing with each other; we're all collaborating with each other, and that's just one of the most unique and exciting things about the beer business in general. So, so it's very exciting. So Full Circle Fest is coming up. There's a couple. We did Thaw Fest at Riverworks, which we try to do every year, which is always a great event. Do it right at the end of the spring. And then, of course, there's the Ballpark Brew Bash. I don't know. I think I'm up to like 25 or 26 events a year that I'm doing. So,
Wow.
So it's just crazy. They just
I've only
happen.
been to 4. Damn.
It's like every other weekend.
It really is.
Serious on the nose going on.
And in the summer, it's almost every weekend, and then in the winter, it cuts off for a little while.
I take a look at that Buffalo Brewing News every once in a while. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Never hurts looking at it.
yeah. So I would say Farm to Pint was great, and Full Circle Fest we're looking forward to, and then I haven't gotten past Memorial Day on my calendar yet, so I'm sure there's more there. We do a couple fun fundraisers. We always the one for the Buffalo Zoo is always fun. That's Wines in the Wild. Which is always a good time. That's the one, cough, my green tea beer won best beer at, so cough. So that's always a good event. But it's a fundraiser for the zoo. So those are always the best events, the ones that benefit someone or something. So,
Yeah.
Well, great. That sounds like a lot of good stuff coming up. Thanks, Chris, so much for joining us. Again, Chris Herr from Pear Street.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
thanks.
That was awesome.
Thank you. Cheers.
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 I'm out of beer.
Yeah, me too. Kind of the history of how I got into brewing. So I went to school for recording engineering, and we would get these ambiguous assignments like find a band and record them, right? So part of my major was you had to audition in on an instrument. So I'm actually a jazz saxophonist in addition to everything else. So, when I was in recording school, I would like to find jazz bands to record them just because they were easy enough to come up with and they played around. So I went to Fredonia, and in Fredonia there was Ellicottville Brewing Company, which was the EBC West, the little brew pub in Fredonia. So I found myself hanging out at EBC West, drinking craft beer while listening to jazz music, try to find bands to record. So I kind of fell in love with Two Brothers Pale Ale and Paniastropis and the Blueberry and all those beers. Like, they were better than the dime drafts I was getting at Sonny's. Like, it was basically spoiled Molson.
Sonny's.
So I would go. That was my luxury beer for the week if I had the extra $6 to spend. And so I fell in love with craft beer while finding jazz bands to record. And then I remember it was my senior year. My friend, my roommate in college came back and he said, yeah, I made some beer at home over the summer. And I was like, wait, you made beer at home? No. Beer is made by gnomes in a factory somewhere. What do you mean? And so, yeah. So he brought us this buttery, watered down, flat pale ale. And like true college students, we drank the shit out of it and finished this horrible beer. And
you said it was good, didn't you?
No. We didn't, but we drank it because it was alcoholic. So that kind of inspired me to look. I was going to go to school for cooking if I didn't get into recording engineering. So I've always had this fascination between the subjective and the objective, right? You know, this song sounds good, or this amplifier sounds good, but there's a mathematical way to figure out a circuit and the speaker and everything that make an amp sound good. But good is a subjective term, and good is an objective term in that way too. So that was always my fascination in recording. And then beer is kind of the same way, where you can say, wow, this beer tastes good, but we can quantify a lot of those numbers to figure out what objectively makes a beer subjectively good, right? So
the emotion versus the science.
Right. So that's always kind of been my passion, and finding this in all various different aspects of life has kind of been where I gravitate towards. So I got a homebrew kit thinking, oh, I'm going to go and make Harpoon IPA. How hard can this be on my stove, right? And I made this like overly sweet, like kind of oxidized, sort of not so great IPA, and I'm going, but I had the recipe. What happened? You know, so what kind of led me to finding, to reaching out to breweries in Buffalo was that I had brewed a couple batches at home and thought they were good, but I didn't think they were as good as the stuff I was buying. And everything I was reading was saying, homebrew's so good, homebrew's so great. Like, you know, I'm thinking, well, it's good, but it's not as good as the stuff I'm getting. So I literally Googled breweries in Buffalo, and what came up was Pearl Street and Flying Bison, and they both had a contact us page on their website. So I just sent both of them an email asking, hey, you know, I'm a home brewer, my stuff's okay, but it's not great. Can I just come in and pick your brain and have you try my beer and see if you can tell me what's going on? And Pearl Street responded, and they basically said, yeah, and my assistant put in his 2-week notice this morning, so if you're looking for a job, we might have a job for you. So
Jesus.
It was a little serendipitous that I ended up starting brewing there, and then like I talked about before, that was how I got into an assistant position. And then I left after a year because I got offered a job at Calspan doing government car crash testing. So I went and did car crash testing for a year and a half. And then when we opened Pan Am, I came back to Pearl. So it's been a little bit of a wild ride to get where I am. But
you've done well.
So, thanks. Yeah. So it's been exciting. And one of my favorite things to do, and one of the reasons it was so fun to work on the Strawberries and Cream IPA, is because I love incorporating non-traditional flavors into beer. So with the gin saison and the green tea beer and these other beer, and now we got
with tradition.
Fucking with tradition.
Right. So Strawberries and Cream was another one. Like, yeah, we can do that. Sure, let's come up with something. So
a lot of the ideas I have around that are what we just call fucking with tradition, but it's a quote from Sam Calagione.
Oh, is
that
it?
The only
like
American tradition is fucking with tradition.
That sounds very much like Sam.
Yep.
Speaking of Dogfish Head, so they have the beer drink music too.
That's
You
what I
with
was
a
gonna
jazz
say.
background, do you have any kind of music-inspired beers or like beer to listen to jazz to?
You know, I'm sure there is.
Beer to funk
Okay.
out too.
Any
Do you
beer
have
to
a favorite artist? Jazz music.
it's like picking one of your kids, man. Come on.
All right, if you're something comes on the radio, okay, if you're just gonna listen to jazz, what would you want to drink?
Oh, jeez, beer?
Okay, yes.
No,
He's just sitting there,
I,
he's like, no, I'll switch to wine now.
I often say the colder, fuller one in front of me is my beer. But
Or the one in your hand.
which one is that? The colder, fuller one's mine, man. No, I don't know. I mean, I think one of the beauties of beer is there are so many flavors and there are so many interesting things you can get from beer that you can really find something that fits into your mood for that day. You know, like I love when people come up to me and they say, well, I don't like beer. And I go, well, what do you mean you don't like beer? They go, you know, I don't like beer. And I'm like, well, what beer do you mean? And inevitably you end up dragging out of them, well, I don't like Blue Light, and I don't like Miller Light, I don't like, beer. And I go, I don't like those either. So let's talk about now where we can go from there. And I had a woman try, she was a red wine drinker. She told me she didn't like beer. and she tried my black IPA, and she came back for 2 more because she thought it was so good.
Really good.
And it's like,
It's
would that
amazing
be
to
your
me.
first beer? If you were
I worked for Aurora Brewers, and it's amazing how many people come in and they're like, "I'm not a beer drinker. I don't like beer." I'm like, no, we haven't found you the beer you like
Exactly.
to drink.
It's a beer for everyone.
There's a beer for everyone, and I find it's like, all right, you like a lot of wines. I might go to something a little more fruity. Like, do you like something drier? Do you like something like, hey, maybe I go to something a little more champagne, like maybe a little something like, say, the saison over here is really really dry. Maybe you like that, something
white
like that.
and fruity, right?
It's interesting. It's like, I'm like, so let me get this straight. You like alcohol, but because you think of cheap, light beer that your spouse is drinking watching the game, and you're like, that's no good. You don't like it. Well, let me slide this glass over to you and see what you think. And it's when someone comes back, and it's almost puts a smile on your face. I'm like, I just changed you.
Yep.
I'm like, let's do this now.
Right. And then you start, you plant the seed, and it becomes a whole thing.
I've got a girlfriend right now. She's like, yeah, beer makes me feel this way, and I'm like, all right, fair enough. And then I'll just crack open a beer, and she'll say either, can I taste it, or this, and I'm like, all right, and then she'll take a sip, and I'll just hear, I like this. What is this? And I'm like, that is a beer that I'm going to bring back in the house again. And like, that's what's keeping, this whole why is there so much beer in the fridge? You like it too.
My dad is the wine drinker and I'm the beer drinker, so we're often trading. But my dad, when I was a kid, I remember we had Labatt in the house, and then we had Honey Brown in the house was another big one, and then it would be Killian's occasionally. So my parents are always kind of open to this idea of trying different beers. But my dad, when he started drinking, he was an amber drinker. He'd be like, oh yeah, give me your Trainwreck, your amber ales, whatever. And then I slowly turned him into a pale ale drinker. Well, try here, just try this one. And then he'd go back to the amber ales and be like, these are a little sweet. And I'm like, yeah, they're not bad, but they're a little sweet. And then now he's an IPA drinker. It's you just got the taste and just slowly let it grow until he's
lingered for a little bit.
Yeah, now he's drinking my Saber's Edge.
You got your first hit. Here, take a little taste.
First one's free, right? Yeah. Yeah, so hops, I always make the analogy that hops are like coffee. A lot of people, the first time they try coffee, it's bitter, it's acrid, they don't like the flavor of it. And the more you drink it, the more you get the nutty, the toast, the chocolate flavors out of it, that you're like, oh wow, once you get over the bitter kind of character, you really start to taste it. And I say the same as with hops. When you tell someone this hoppy beer tastes like grapefruit and orange zest, and my new one has white grape and watermelon. It's a 007 from Idaho and El Dorado, right? Two very unique, bright, hot, or Belma tasting like strawberry, right?
Yeah.
And most people, the first time they taste it, they just go, oh, that's just bitter. I don't taste any of that. But after you become accustomed to that flavor, then you start to really get the citrus notes behind it.
You have the recording background, and I'm a food guy, and one of my favorite chefs is Alton Brown.
Yeah, me
and
too.
He's coming to Buffalo, and I really want tickets.
See at UB?
UB, November.
My mom probably will see him again.
So,
she
I
works
love
there,
that man. But the way he put it, he does his cocktail episodes, and he's done homebrewing episodes. And the way he put it is a cocktail is a chord.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same for wine as it is for homebrew. It's finding those notes that fit together to create one solid piece.
Yep.
And then you get something really, really special. So
it's a great way of putting it. I've been on a bitter liquor kick lately. The chartreuse, the Camparis, the things like that. And my dad goes, "What are you going to drink when you're 60?" I'm like, I don't know,
but I'll make sure it's good. That's all I know.
It's I've been on a Negroni kick lately. I'm not sure.
We do a Negroni beer at 42.
It's the IPA of cocktails to me. Bitter, sweet, and spicy. Yeah, we did a. I didn't know the gin saison, but so
Don't hurts.
yeah.
All right.